Now is there sound?
Are we good? Let us know if we're good. Man, I'm gonna have to repeat all that.
No, we weren't on mute.
Okay, we're good.
I have a new headset and it was picking that up.
Okay, so what I was saying was we started a minute late because I had to finish my sugar plum Danish from Starbucks, and they're really good. And my goal is to eat as many as possible before they get rid of them for the season. So that's why we were late. I also wanted to let you guys know that I am reading Pour Your Heart Out by Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks. So that's what I'm currently reading. I know a few of you beat me to the punchline when I announced that I bought it a couple months ago. A bunch of you ran out and bought it and then started reading it. So no spoilers. Not that there's a spoiler like in a business book, but let me know if you've read Pour Your Heart Into It, Pour Your Heart Out, Pour Your Heart Into It. I think it's Pour Your Heart Into It. By Howard Schultz. So for those who are joining us for the very first time, we hang out for the first 10 minutes of every stream while we wait for everyone to get online. There were no email announcements today, so if you did not get an email for the Q&A, don't be alarmed. I didn't send one because I sent so many emails last week about the end of Handmade Alpha Academy that I try to not like oversaturate you guys with too many emails, and I felt that I would give you guys a break. Just because, I mean, you guys don't mind, you guys want them, but there are those weirdos who are like, man, you emailed me twice in a week, and they get really mad. But if I don't send those, hey, this is your last chance to enroll emails for HAA, we get messages at midnight, which, yes, we did. Like, right at midnight, people messaged us and said, I was trying to check out, and I wasn't able to. So yeah, we had a bunch of those. And some of them, it wasn't their fault. Like, it was just, credit card issues and things. And we make exceptions for things like that. But if it was just because you were sleeping and, you forgot.
Sorry.
All right, guys. So a few announcements for today. First of all, huge congrats to our Handmade Alpha Academy class of 2019. If anybody is in our new class of 2019, let us know down in the comments. We're super duper excited. Everybody is doing fantastic. Right now in HAA, most of our students are really focusing on narrowing down their target customer to the point where they can spot them like in a grocery store right when they see them. Like they would just know who their target customer is. And I'm so happy to see everyone posting what they're finding and posting their examples so I can look over them. I haven't had a chance to do that today. So if you've posted one today, I will be going in after the Q&A. We slept in today because we have just overworked ourselves like the last few weeks. So we ended up letting ourselves take a little nap after our kiddo got a little nap most of the morning. But let's see. Woohoo! HA class of 2019. Brittany is in HA class of 2019. Jennifer is in class of 2019. Wendy Work Art is in class of 2019. Cloudy is a baby wolf, but she hasn't started yet. That's okay. So, and for those who are wondering what's HAA, that is my personal course on Etsy. However, it is closed until summer now. So
Yep.
You won't hear anything else about it until summer because our class of 2019 is busy dominating Etsy right now. So, all right. So a few other quick announcements. Unboxing video is scheduled very, very soon. We've been kind of sick. So we've been waiting until we're not sick because I hate recording a scheduled video sick. But Mr. Moore, you want to lean over a little bit so they can see wrong way. So they can see that is our pile. I know that I got an email from Beth this morning asking if her package was here. So Beth, if you're here, Eddie's going to go check them out. So Beth, yes, your package is there if you're watching this. We just normally whenever we don't go and email everybody who when we get a package from you, we're not going to track you down and email you and say, hey, we got a package from you, because we get so many. Just, if it's in our PO box, it's in there. I mean, if it says it's delivered, we got it. So, and then the last thing that I want to announce before we start is that there will be no Q&A this upcoming Friday, the 21st, because obviously you guys are going to be busy getting ready for the holidays. Our kiddo's going to be off school. You know, we want to make sure that we're not stressing you guys out too much by throwing too much at you all at once. And we've got holiday stuff that we got to do too. So
we're doing one on the 28th. I wasn't sure if we were doing one that day. I don't know if we got any parties or anything.
I'm not sure.
We probably will.
We might do one on the 28th, but I'm not sure. As of right now, I know that this Friday we will not be doing one though. But
most people will be busy, so I'm not too stressed about it.
So when are you doing the opening of the unboxes? We've both been sick, so we're just trying to, it'll be in the next few days. We're just trying to get rid of our stuffy noses, because let me tell you, those unboxing videos, like, they're a lot of fun, but we have to portray this level of energy the whole time, because if we're feeling sick and we open somebody's package and we love the product, but we're feeling sick and we, you know, how do I explain this? If we're feeling sick, we might not portray the way that we actually feel about a product. And then it comes off as we're not excited about it. So have you guys ever had to fake enthusiasm when you're sick and, like, you know, you're happy about something, but it's awful, right? So Q&As are different because, you know, I don't have to maintain the level of energy the whole time. But for unboxings, I would rather not be sick and, you know, loopy on cold medicine. So disclaimer, don't take cold medicine unless you need it. I don't think I should have to say that, but I still get ID'd at the grocery store, so maybe I should. It's exhausting. Exactly.
Very much so.
And speaking of exhausting, today we're going to be talking about interactions that you guys are probably going to have to encounter over the holidays. If you have holiday parties planned, if you know, see family over the holidays that you only see like during the month of December, that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. We have a huge holiday party with, none of your family's going to watch this, right?
Yours might.
Oh, I don't care about mine. Mine's cool.
No, I don't think so.
He's got some rich aunts and uncles who
they won't be watching.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's got some rich aunts and uncles that own a local construction company or cement company. Construction or cement?
They do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and they kind of act like they own the whole state.
Technically, it's a sand and gravel company, but they do concrete and foundation and all that other stuff too.
But when we first got home, so it's noon on the dot. So let's intro so you guys can kind of see how we relate, and you guys can let us know if you have family members who are similar to this. So we lived in California for 6 years. He was in the military, and before he was in the military, like, he was the goth kid. He wore trip pants and, you know, listened to metal and was kind of the, I mean, he still is, but
I still am. 100%.
I mean, he dyed his hair black and, you know, but anyway, his family just kind of outcasted him because he was the black sheep. And I mean, you probably didn't really care about all that much.
No,
did you?
Still don't.
He didn't really care. Like, that's just like that's the life that he chose. So
I keep it real, yo.
Yeah. So, and thankfully my family's all metalheads. So, like, even my mom's like a goth kid and my dad is in a metal band. So, like, I've never had that problem, but I could see it in him where he was experiencing all these, you know, these family members who really didn't know who he was as a person because
understand me.
They didn't have any interest in getting to know him. So when he joined the military, obviously things shifted a lot because there was this big family pride, like, oh, someone in our family's in the military, yay. And we got, like, the first 2 to 3 years that he was in the military, every year we got all these cards and letters from family that he didn't even, like, barely know. I would say, who the heck is this? And he's like, I think it's my uncle. I don't know. So that we got all this, you know, this love from them that he had never received before in his life. And I think it was just because there was a novelty of him being in the military. And
a little late for that.
Do we have any military, like, spouses or those who are in the military who have been in the military who have experienced that? Like, right when you join, people shower you with that novelty love. But then as the years went on, we stopped getting those cards. And, you know, I always sent cards back. We always reciprocated and sent, you know, thank you cards and things like that. But as time went on, we stopped getting them and things died down. And then 2 years ago, we came home after his enlistment ended, and we started getting invited to all the holiday parties again. Like, oh, you know, they're back. And we told them our plan. Like, we went to the holiday parties and we said, we have decided that we're going to run, you know, the Etsy shop full time. Because, of course, they wanted to know, what are you going to do? Like, what job are you going to get? Are you going to get another job? Like, work contracting or working, for the military, but not in the military. Cause you can work on a military base and not be in the military.
Yeah. My drummer in my band works at the Right Back Credit Union on base.
So, they were all curious as to what he was going to do. And he's like, nah, we're going to run our Etsy shop full time. And of course that like first year, everyone was like, oh, okay. And then last year we had just started working on Handmade Alpha Academy. And we told them like, hey, we've got this really cool YouTube channel and we're coaches, we're business coaches. We do free stuff right now, but we're planning on opening a course. And once again, they were like, oh, that's nice. So you sell crafts. You're going to teach people how to sell crafts.
People who still don't understand that the internet is the future.
Yeah. They're like, you're going to teach people how to sell crafts. I went to a flea market once and I saw lots of crafts there. Like they had just no idea at all of what we were doing. So this year we're gonna, this is gonna be the year when we tell them like it happened. And we're really, really excited about that. But, obviously those first few years, it was really difficult to explain the value in what we were doing. So let's see about, did the tree fall up?
Isn't that cute?
Isn't that cute?
That's my favorite, especially now that we make more money than anyone in my family.
Cynthia was Army. Cynthia, I didn't know that. Cynthia, yeah. You're so like,
she mentioned it once before.
Cynthia, you're like, so, I don't know, like hoorah that I could see you in the Army. Like that would be, if I were to guess what branch you would be in, I would definitely say Army. You've got like that, you're just you're very outgoing. So I could totally see that.
See, now GFT Woodcraft, my parents were actually pretty supportive. I think my parents were probably the most supportive of the bunch.
Yeah, because they saw the potential.
Well, my dad's a musician and my mom's all about love and all that stuff. But so it's one of those things where it's like they just wanted us to do what we like to do. Your
parents weren't on in that rich level. Like,
yeah, they were about in the same level we were.
Yeah. So, well, isn't that cute? Shane says I was in infantry for 7 years, and yeah, in the beginning, but it died off really fast. Yeah,
it dies off real fast. Obviously, my direct family was still pretty stoked on me, but
yeah. I get a lot of, oh, that's interesting. My parents were like that until I showed them the numbers, and you know what? That's what I really want to talk about. So there's some things that you should know. And once again, this will be a stream where I'm looking at notes because I have a lot I want to cover, and I have a lot I want to cover and I don't want to miss anything. So some things that you should know when you first, get to that holiday party and that there's going to be those family members there who you're going to struggle with interactions with. The thing is, first of all, they're probably not trying to hurt you. I mean, they probably just don't understand what you're doing or your life's goals. And that's okay. It's okay that they don't understand you. I mean, and that's one of the big things that we experienced when we first explained the Etsy shop before we had the Handmade Alphas, our first year back, was that they just didn't know what Etsy was or that there could be success on Etsy. So don't count it out and don't assume that they're trying to attack you, because they might just not be good at explaining themselves when it comes to trying to gather an understanding of what you're doing. And I think that another big thing is that their worries and their fears for you come out in the wrong way. So that it's not that they're trying to attack you. It's more that they're worried about you, and they're worried about your success because they have a very narrow path that they've gone on where maybe they went to college. They, got the internship. They started paying off the college debt. They got the job they wanted. They paid off the college debt. And, they worked in a position for X amount of years and they climbed up the chain. And now, especially when it comes to like wealthy family members, I know that they tend to like stick their nose up, and everybody has like that rich uncle who's just like that. But it's not so much that they're trying to attack you, is that they want you to do the thing that they know works, but what worked for them might not necessarily be for you. And I know that certainly wasn't, my case. I didn't go to college. I graduated high school like with honors. But when he joined the military, I said, well, I'll put off college a few years. It's no biggie. We got to move across the country and it's going to be too hard for me to keep up. And then I got pregnant, and then it just kind of, went to the wayside. But I dedicated my time into learning in other ways. And what I found was that I was able to hone in on the things that I actually needed to know rather than wasting time in subjects that weren't going to ever apply to me. And I think that narrow focus has allowed me to do a lot more and, utilize my time a lot more wisely, being age 26 now and having built 2 successful businesses. I think that it had a lot to do with me taking my own time and my own path and focusing on that. So it's really important to explain your values and why you've chosen to take the path that you have, even if it's the kind of unconventional path. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that soon. And another big thing and it's kind of like I don't know, it kind of hurts to hear this, but they're probably not going to believe you until you show them. And that's like, who said it? They didn't believe you until you showed them numbers. Yes, Beth, I did receive your package. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. But it's one of those things where they need to see those results. And until you have something to show for it, they're not going to believe you. And that's okay. The thing is, there is a strong line between like skepticism and disrespect. And they can be skeptical, but they can't be cynical, because cynicism, is an overall lack of respect and belief in your ability to do it. Does that make sense? Skepticism is one of those things where they say to themselves, well, I know the statistics. Statistically, only, I think it's 1 in 5 businesses succeed, and it takes 5 years for the average business to succeed. They can use some intelligent reasoning skills, especially if they know anything about business. And they can say to themselves, this is possible, but it's unlikely. And that's okay. And the great thing that you can do then is be honest with them rather than saying, you know what, I don't care about that. I'm going to be a big shot. You can go in and say, you know what, I know that the odds are against me, but I'm going to go for it anyways, because this is what's going to fulfill me. So I want to go over some of the points. But before we get into some of, the ideas and things that you guys can respond with, and then when we end, you guys can maybe shoot me some ideas of situations that you've had that you didn't know how to interact, and we can cover those.
We've got a whole page and a half worth.
Right. Well, it just,
some of these are rough too.
We'll go over some of them when we finish. But the first thing that I want to talk about is how you actually approach these conversations, because one of the biggest problems that I had when I first started my Etsy shop, I wasn't around family when I first started my shop because we were, 3,000 miles away. We were all the way across the country, but I did have to interact with other military spouses in highbrow, people in his career field, and even talking to people like, his higher ups. It was really hard to explain what I did, because most wives in the military don't do anything. And I know that sounds like a terrible stereotype, but anybody who's in the military it's
true.
It is. And most wives choose to be the housekeeper because they don't have to work. It's not something that, most,
especially the people that live on base.
And this isn't saying that women in the military don't have, husbands who are the same, but we know that
we don't need to appeal to the PC police. This is our crowd.
Right. But it probably goes the same both ways, but I can only speak from my personal experience and those that I hung around with, and I wasn't hanging out with.
It went the same way for the male spouses too. Most of the male spouses didn't work.
Right. And I wasn't hanging out, and interacting with male military spouses. So we're just going to, talk on the position of a female, where I would see these women who, they'd wake up at noon and immediately pour a glass of wine and watch, daytime soaps and take their kids to craft events and come home and cook dinner and clean the house. And I just, wow, how freaking unfulfilling that would be to me. That might be fulfilling to them, but that was not for me. I did not want that. I was only 19 years old. I wanted more than that. So I decided to be more. And a lot of people, that I had to interact with on a daily basis didn't understand why I wasn't taking that easy road and why I was putting more stress on myself, because starting that business obviously was very stressful. For those of you who have started or who are starting right now, that is the hardest part, is the beginning. It is the most stressful. And people, were like, you don't have to do that. You could just chill, be like us. And I had to explain why I wanted to. And when I would explain these things, I did so with such a lack of confidence that nobody felt confidence in me. And I've kind of learned how to change that when I'm talking about both of my businesses, both, Art by Starla Moore, my Etsy shop, and the Handmade Alpha Academy, because obviously I get asked about HAA when I'm at networking events, when I'm doing my public speaking events. People ask me about it, and I have to show them my confidence in it. Otherwise, they're not going to have any confidence in me. So one of the things that I highly recommend doing is when you're, opening up to a social interaction that has to do anything with your business, make sure that you're opening up your body while you're talking. And what that means is basically not trying to make yourself look very small. And I know that that's hard and it takes a lot of practice, and you have to keep it like in your head as you're going into those interactions at first. But the more you practice it, the more that it becomes a part of you. Now, what you probably do if you're not super confident, if you find yourself not comfortable talking about your business, is when someone asks you about it, you might like kind of shift on your feet. Maybe you hold your arms over your chest. Maybe you touch your face or your hair a lot. There's so many like little things that just show your lack of confidence, when in reality, you'll notice that when I'm talking about things that I'm confident in, my hands are moving all the time. I'm showing that I feel comfortable talking about the subject that I'm covering. When you're talking about your business, all of these movements and gesticulations are going to play into how confident you appear in your words. So you should also kind of have almost like a choreographed sentence in mind. When someone says, "What are you doing? How's your business?" Think about how you're going to respond to those ahead of time. That way they're already in your head if those conversations don't come naturally to you. Because I know for me, explaining Handmade Alpha Academy was one of the hardest things that I had to learn how to do. Because first of all, some people don't even know what Etsy is. So, I have to establish early, like, okay, does this person know what Etsy is? How can I cover this? And I say, well, if someone says, "What do you do?" "Hey, I'm a business coach for Etsy." And then they say, "What's Etsy?" "Well, do you know anything about eBay or Amazon?" Yeah, it's kind of like that, except it's for handmade artists and crafters to sell their artwork. And I teach them how to do so on the high end so that they're making the most possible money for their craft. So that would be a way that I would describe that. Or for Art by Starla Moore, I have people ask me, well, what do you sell on Etsy? Do you make like necklaces? I say, yeah, it's kind of like that, except what I create are actually skeleton key necklaces that you can't find anywhere else. I use tons of components to make these beautiful art pieces. And it's basically like a collage of pieces that creates one complete picture. And then of course I've always got like a business card with me to kind of show an example. Or if you have like a product that for jewelry, obviously you could just wear something. That way you can kind of explain it better. And that kind of serves as a prop or a crutch during those interactions. But any way that you can, open up your body, use examples, move around, and just try not to act small when you're having those engagements. Man, the chat is lighting up. Elevator pitch. What do you do? The elevator pitch can be the hardest part, and that's what it's called. If you had to describe your craft in an elevator, and how long is an elevator ride? Like 10, 20 seconds?
Just fart and make it awkward.
That's an elevator. Just fart and make it awkward. Explain your craft if you were asked on an elevator. Could you do it that quickly? And could you do it in 1 to 2 sentences? And it's good to have those sentences ready, because when people are going to ask you what you do a million times when you start a business. So you need to be able to tell people exactly what you do, have the confidence to do it, and know exactly what you're going to say and be able to describe it well. So
it'll go from a point to fear of describing it to annoyance of describing it, because you're going to realize how often you're having to do that.
Right. And then once
you'll be confident in it. You'll just be annoyed.
Right. Well, it gets to the point where I'm not annoyed.
Oh, I am. God, I'm so annoyed. Especially when I have to explain it to someone who I like during the holidays when they just weren't paying attention or they were drunk when I explained it to them.
The first time. Yeah.
And I have to say the exact same thing.
All right. So another big thing, and this is like the number 2. I've only got 2 points for actually starting those conversations, as opposed to ways to react. But one of the other big mistakes or big things that I see very commonly during social interactions that I know that we've all experienced is when you're trying to describe something to someone that you're really passionate about the subject matter, or you're talking, it doesn't even need to be about your business. It could be about anything. And someone enters the conversation, or the person that you're talking to just starts to steamroll over you and talk over top of you.
I tell them to bugger off and I walk away.
You know what I mean? Like you're so passionate and you're excited and they start to talk over you and then you just kind of shut your mouth or you start to talk over them and you just let your sentence disappear. Now, what that shows is that you don't value what you need to say. It shows that you don't value your own words and that you are willing to just let them talk over top of you. So what I've learned how to do, and I even do it to him and it makes him really mad because he knows that
I know that she's doing it and I tell her to shut up and let me finish talking.
He knows that I'm doing it. But when you have that family member who just talks right over top of you or butts in, just keep talking. If you need to get that sentence out, don't let them, roll over you. Finish the conversation in the same tone and the same volume, looking straight at them, and finish what you need to say, even if you're just closing a sentence. And what that's going to show is that you value what you need to say and that they should value it too. And usually what happens is
there's a lot of respect that goes into that too. They clearly don't respect you enough to let you finish talking.
Exactly. And what I've noticed is that when you do that to someone that, and I'm not saying do this to your spouse. I do it to him all the time and he does it to me. But it's one of those things where we know that we can take turns talking. So sometimes we just get excited and we talk over each other. But when it comes to a small interaction and you've only got that person's attention for a few minutes and they're choosing to take over the conversation and steal your point away from you, it is absolutely okay to convey that need for respect and show them, you asked me a question. I'm taking the stage. If you didn't want to know, you shouldn't have asked. Here I am. I'm going to continue what I need to say because I value it. And usually what happens and what has happened to me is when I continue that tone and I make that eye contact and I stare directly at them, they end up feeling really stupid for having talked over me. And they'll either usually close their sentence or they will be the one to trail off and stop talking. And you don't have to be mean about it. Say it with a smile on your face, but maintain your tone and pitch and finish your sentence and finish your point. And then when you finished what you need to say, you can say, what were you saying? Open it up so they can start talking again and let them know that they are now invited to speak.
Yeah, it's a secondary punch in the face on that respect thing we were just talking about.
Right, exactly.
You're permitting them to talk.
Like I do,
oh my God, there's so many.
Like I do with children who are always interrupting your conversations. Oh, yeah. Well, with kids, it's different.
Shut up, go away.
No, don't tell your kids to shut up. With kids, it's like for our daughter, we will if she starts to talk while he and I are talking, I'll usually put my hand up and I'll look at her and I'll say, Taylor, mommy and daddy are talking. I need you to wait until we're finished and then you can tell me. And then I turn back and I maintain my conversation with him. And after we have completely finished talking, then I'll turn to her and I'll say, okay, sweetie, what did you need to tell me? And then after she tells me, I'll remind her, okay, next time you need to tell me something like that, you wait until the adults aren't talking anymore. And then you can come in and talk to me. Yeah. So just make sure that you still invite the conversation, but away from kids, because obviously we're talking about, adults. May I suggest Brag, the art of tooting your own horn without blowing it? Oh yeah, that sounds like, is it a book?
By Peggy Klaus on Amazon.
Cool. I might have to check that out. Let me take a drink real quick. All right, so let's talk about what to actually do when you get into those conversations. And then we will open up to questions and I can give you guys some ideas on the fly of how I would personally respond to awkward interactions. And just know that there are some interactions that are just so bitter that they can't be dealt with. And I will have a little strategy for those. For that family member who just doesn't give a crap what you say, no matter how,
Yeah, I'll just keep my opinions out of that.
Yeah, he
because I have a very different way of handling things.
Mr. Moore was in the military, so Mr. Moore is a lot more bitter. So the first thing that I think is very important is to give reasons that align with your values when it comes to your business. So don't ever use money as a focus. Talk about the values that you hold within your business and how you want to help people, because that usually outshines any amount of money. And then you always, of course, will have the people who say, yeah, but does it make money? And we'll be talking about that in a minute too. But the first thing that you really need to do is focus on the actual values of what you're doing, the purpose behind it, the people that you're trying to help, and the things that really, really matter deep down on that ethical level, as opposed to that profitable level. Because people are going to respect your desire to fulfill others more than they are going to respect your desire to just make a butt ton of money. So we're going to get into that. So a good way to respond, and I actually wrote down like a little description of how I would respond if somebody said, why don't you just get a normal job? Or, what made you choose this? And maybe you can just tell that they have that lack of confidence in you and what you're saying. And they want to know why'd you pick that over, working in the family business or going to college for, I don't know, being a lawyer. So something that I would say is maybe I did the 9-to-5 thing for years and it really didn't give me an opportunity to control my own destiny. So I turned to business, and maybe my shop will get huge, maybe it won't, but deep down, I'll always know that I took a leap of faith. And I think that I think that all that I've learned from the experience more than justifies the time that I've dedicated. So basically what I've done is I have explained myself, and I have opened up the opportunity to say, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but I think that I've learned a lot and I won't take any of that back. And I think that, regardless, the things that I've learned are going to help me in other areas. So I don't regret a thing. And you can use that for career paths. You can use that for anything. That's not just for business. When you say, and you open up the potential to say, maybe this will work, maybe it won't, but that's okay. I'm doing this for me. Who can argue that? When you say, I'm doing this for me, I'm doing this to fulfill myself. I didn't feel fulfilled working a 9-to-5. I knew that wasn't a path for me. I knew that this isn't something that I was going to be passionate about. And I just want to spend my time on earth doing something that I enjoy. There's no way that someone can argue that, but sometimes they will. So sometimes they'll find a way to throw in some nasty commentary. And at that point, things start to escalate. And obviously, you're going to need to deal with it or walk away from the situation and find somebody else to talk to at the party. So and what I had talked about earlier is expressing that you understand that it is unconditional or unconventional. Maybe it's not the way that they were raised. Maybe it's not the path that they took, but you do it because you love it and you have a genuine passion for it. And it's one of those things where people are going to struggle to understand on the level of what you would do. Like, they might say, I would never do that for my, in my life. But they'll still be able to respect your decisions because they know it's coming from a place of, not just profitable gain, but it's coming from a place that's deep inside you. It's coming from a place of passion and desire and, wanting to fulfill not just your life, but the lives of others through whatever product you're creating, because ultimately all products solve some type of problem in the lives of your customers, right? So just make sure that you're focusing on those values when going through those interactions. And obviously that can take a lot of practice, and you have to really know what problems you're solving in the lives of others. Obviously, Handmade Alpha Academy students, you guys have like a whole lesson on that. But for those who aren't in HAA, you really need to sit and maybe just get out a piece of paper. And this isn't just for like holiday, this holiday discussion, but in general, you should know what problems you are out to solve and give yourself a written list of values that you aim to maintain, because this list can serve almost as a list of rules in which you live your life or the life of your business. So it's always good to know what problems you're solving for those customers, so you know exactly what the purpose of your business is. It shouldn't be just profitable gain. That comes as a result of sharing your passion. And then I've got like one last little tip for if, they show just a distaste for everything that you've said. And I actually got this idea from a channel that I watch called Charisma on Command that I really like. And I couldn't have said this better myself. So I totally stole this line, and I've used it, I think, 3 times in my life with family members. I used it with grandma. That grandma, the grandma. And I said, well, it's a good thing that you get to make decisions for your life and I get to make decisions for my life. Otherwise, I think if roles were reversed, you and I would both be very unhappy. And what that does is it basically says that you don't need their approval. And, you wouldn't be necessarily happy doing what they're doing either, but you're not pointing fingers at them for it, right? So when you do that, it kind of takes a little bit of the wind out of their sails. And then my very last tip, if all else fails and things just go sour and you just have a family member who's out for blood, which I really hope that you don't, but I know that everybody,
people do,
right?
These comments.
I know you just got that family member who is literally just at the event to pick on you and dissect your life and, pick apart all of the decisions that you're making.
F them.
All you need to do is look them in the eyes and say, you know what? It's the holidays and I can tell that you're really passionate about what you're saying to me right now, but I don't want to have a bad time. And I know that you certainly don't want to have a bad time. So let's plan a date to talk about this more in depth. And I can let you know a little bit of my reasoning behind what I'm doing if you would like to schedule that with me. But for now, I would like to enjoy our day. And I know that you want to enjoy yours and we should be spending time with family.
That's what I said. F them.
So, but what that does ultimately is it gives them the option to talk about it later. If it's something if it's something that's really bothering them, they'll plan a date to talk to you. But what will happen 9 times out of 10 is they will never schedule a date to talk to you about it. They will let it go. You'll never hear about it again. You have opened up an opportunity for them to contact you to, if they would like to discuss it and discuss your reasoning. You've invited them to schedule that date with you, but they won't. If it's just one of those family members who's out for blood, they won't. And if they do, that should be some indication that they really do care about you. They just don't understand how to explain it or how to articulate that concern that they have for you. And that'll give you some time to actually reflect on it and talk to them quietly. Maybe you could go to a coffee shop and actually sit and discuss with them in a civil situation. And then that'll give you a chance to actually go through, maybe make a list of points that you would like to discuss with them and try to sort things out. Because ultimately, if things are getting that severe to the point where you have to tell them at a holiday gathering, like, hey, we shouldn't be talking about this here, then it sounds like you have a lot more problems with that family member than what you're going to be able to sort out in a 30-second conversation at the holiday party. And ultimately, you're going to need to make a decision whether you're going to keep that person in your life and try to explain, or if they're just so toxic that maybe you shouldn't discuss business with them at all. And you should make it clear that, hey, every time we talk about this, we fight. I know that you don't approve of my life choices. That's okay. You don't have to. But I would prefer that we just not talk about this part of my life when we discuss, what's going on in our lives. I would rather just keep business separate from my relationship with you. And I've had to do that with one of my own relatives, one of my grandmas. I've had to tell her, obviously every time we talk about business, we fight because she has a business that I don't agree with her business model at all. And I've told her that, I can't help you. I can't make you change your business model. I've given you my best advice. You don't want it. That's okay. Maybe we shouldn't talk about business when we're together, and we'll just focus on talking about like family and my daughter and, what's going on with you. We can have a relationship that doesn't involve business. So those are my tips, guys. I'd like to go through and kind of look at some of your own situations.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through here. One person in particular, Cynthia, the Cozy Fox Shop, she does pagan stuff.
Yes.
She said that her grandpa is a diehard Trump ranting Christian who strongly agrees and that witches need to be burned, that kind of crap. So that's like the kind of toxic family member that you got to try to push to the wayside. But if you really just want to upset them, just tell them about the pagan histories of Christmas. And that should get them going.
Here's the thing. When it comes to, and I know that religion, and it doesn't matter what religion that you are.
Be whatever you want to be.
And it doesn't matter what religion that you are, or if you don't have a religion, there will always be an opposing side, because it's every religion against each other. Like, when it comes to extremists, and it's one of those things where you can say to that person, you can say things like, no matter what, I'm a good person. And I would say something like, no matter what, I'm a good person. And I believe that if there is, your form of heaven, that being a good person is what matters most, right? I'm a good mom. I help people. I served in the military. I have fulfilled my purpose, and I continue every day to fulfill my purpose. I would never hurt anyone or wish harm on anyone. And to me, I feel that that is enough. So I would, just hold true to your values, no matter what they are, no matter what religion you are, no matter what your beliefs are. Hold true to your values.
Yeah,
And
what's important to you is more important than what they think is important for you.
Right.
Always. And it should always be that way. And just remember that blood doesn't make family.
Right.
At all. I have most of the people that I consider my family are
not
related to me in any way, shape, or form. And I've discounted family members. I've completely written family members out of my life who I consider to be toxic. And it's a freeing kind of thing. Yeah, it kind of sucks. And there's some family events you can't go to and stuff like that. But sometimes it's worth it. It's just flat out worth it.
And you know what I found is that I did need to distance myself from some family members for a long time. And then ultimately what I found was, after distancing myself and giving them their own chance to reflect and to think about our relationship and what they wished it would be, and where I've gone with my life, all in all, those small, petty little arguments and things start to fade away. And what you're left with is a desire to maintain that family relationship at any cost. And sometimes it does take distancing yourself for a while, but toxic people will remain toxic until you show them that you will not accept it. Don't allow anybody to walk on you or your beliefs or your values or the things that are important to you and your family, because ultimately it is your life, not theirs. And you are the one who's holding that compass. So
absolutely. And that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And
that goes for everything. That's not just about your business. Like, what's important to you is important to you. And no matter who thinks otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It shouldn't matter to you. And if it bothers you, then you need to either get that person on your side or write them off.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Or
about it.
just
or you
don't
can approach
discuss
it your
it.
way. But yeah, just don't discuss it.
Right. You can choose not to discuss the things that you know are going to cause stress within your family.
Life's too short to be stressed.
All right.
Oh, yeah. This one was one of the ones that was real bad.
Okay.
Nairobi Martinez. 2 weeks ago, a family member purchased a hat scarf set from luxury material. They refused to give me full price and got in front of about 17 people, guests at my mom's house, and claimed I'm robbing people.
What?
Yeah, that's one of those people that you need to, goodbye.
That is one of those cases.
That's an attack. That is what that is. That's not like a little bit of disrespect. That's a personal attack.
Yeah, that's one of those cases where I would say, you know what? I'm passionate about what I do. And if you're not okay with it, that's fine. But I will not accept you talking about me in front of my family like this. And then I would choose to walk away. I would just choose to leave.
I would have just straight up left.
I think that it's good to defend your case, though, too. Like, even if you leave right afterwards, give your reasoning. That way people don't just think that you're, especially for women, a lot of people, there's this common misconception that women are just, hysterical and that we just run away and scream. But if you stand tall and stand strong and, look someone in the eye and justify your decision before you walk away, I think that it gets that point across and it leaves them something to chew on. You know what I mean? You want to leave them with something to chew on so that they know you're not just being hysterical and irrational. That they genuinely struck a nerve within you, and that their behavior is absolutely unacceptable and that you will not tolerate it.
People changing the subject, people not supporting businesses. Well, that's a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
My parents told me, when I first started, my mom told me I should get a real job. Now I make way more than my parents, and they're all very supportive now.
Same.
Isn't it kind of crappy how it has to get to that point, though? You have to get to a point of making more money just for people to get your respect. I'm still not a huge fan of that. That's something that I would still probably bring up, but you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't want to rub money in their. In fact, like with my family,
I'm not saying rub money in the faces. I'm saying rub the respect in their face, because it's one of those things that it's like you're just starting out in a business. People are skeptical, and then, oh wow, now you make money. Now I get to respect you. I'm not a huge fan of that. When it comes to friends, that's different, because your friends can be like, dude, you're not going to make any money, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That's expected from friends. But family's supposed to be supportive. in my opinion.
It's one of those things where I feel like don't hold on to spite about it. Like after you make that money, like just let go of that, because I mean, consider that it's like what I said. It's not that they were trying to attack you. It's more that maybe they were just worried about you because they loved you. So I never try to rub things like that in like my family's face, because a lot of my families were worried. They were worried about me. But they weren't handling it the best way.
There's a difference between unhealthy skepticism and
disrespect.
Right.
That's what I said earlier, is that there's a huge difference between skepticism and overall disrespect. There's a difference between skepticism and cynicism, I guess I should say.
Practice by talking to the husband. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and talk to somebody that you trust and care about. Say, hey, we have a party coming up. I would like to discuss how we're going to handle, talking about these subjects. And he and I do that. He and I do that all the time, where we'll discuss what we're going to talk about before we walk into an interaction.
Ashley Olsen, I hate the "what do you do" question. I always have, even when I had a 9-to-5. That's usually because you haven't really thought about it before. I think it's a confidence thing, or maybe you're not super proud of what you were doing at the time.
When they say, "What do you do?" They're not asking you to define your worth. They're not asking you to define your worth. Don't take it as they're asking you to define your value or your worth. Show your enthusiasm for what you do. And no matter what you do, you could shovel horse shit and people will still, if you talk about why you're passionate about it. Like, I love horses. I love horses so much. And I don't care what I have to do. I'm so happy to be with the horses, and I get to spend time with them, and I get to pet them. And yeah, it kind of sucks that I have to, shovel up poop every day, but I get to spend time with them, and it just makes me feel so fulfilled. And guess what? They're going to respect that just because you're doing something that you love, and they're probably not super thrilled about whatever they're doing with their lives. And they might be envious just of the fact that you're happy about it. So
who else hates the term side hustle? I hate it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hate it so much. And then she said, especially when they're talking about your Etsy business. Yeah.
I mean, it could be, I think that there is like a proper way to say side hustle. Like if you work, we'll say that you work a job and you're making.
If it legitimately is.
Yeah. If you're making $30,000 a year at a job, and then you're making $5,000 a year in your Etsy shop.
That's a side hustle.
That is a side hustle because it hasn't surpassed. For now. But if, that is your primary income, or if it's all that you do, and you're really working on building that business, then no, it's not a side hustle. It is your growing business. Don't use little words when describing your business. Think big. Don't say side hustle. Don't say craft, my craft shop. Don't call them crafts. I had a lot of difficulty saying that I was a jewelry designer. I think that felt really weird. I didn't like the way that it sounded. But now when people ask me, what do you do in your Etsy shop? Oh, I'm a jewelry designer. I make handmade skeleton key necklaces. And, that conveys so much more respect than saying, oh, I'm a crafter, or, oh, I make necklaces. I'm a jewelry designer, because that's what you're doing. If you are designing jewelry, you are a jewelry designer. If you are a woodworker, what would you, I guess you would just say woodworker, right?
I decided to just forgo activities on my husband's side this year. Too much emotional and mental abuse. Yeah, see, that's one of those things that for me, especially taking crap from the other family side, they are not your direct family. You are not obligated to take shit from anyone on their side of the family. Anyone on her side of the family gives me shit, they're gone. Done. Yeah. Bye. She'd be like, I'm going to see this person. Be like, well, F them. You can go see them. Not me.
Thankfully, we don't really have anybody like that. Well, we have one, but I'm not really talking to that person right now either. We're waiting on some things to clear up in their life. They're not making very good life choices, and I don't want that to reflect back on ours. So.
How much money will you spend for Christmas? Way too much. I'm not going to answer that. Too much.
Probably too much. We've got big families. His family's big.
And we have the money to buy stuff for everyone now. So apparently we are.
Yeah. I love showering the family with love.
No, because that's less love I get. Anyway.
You don't want anything. I've asked you what you want.
No, I don't.
He doesn't want anything
I buy myself my own stuff.
Oh. Ruth.
Okay. Nah, it was something we already discussed.
Oh, yeah.
Toxic family is the worst. Yes, they are. Mother-in-law asked me if I could just keep my mouth shut this year. I can't even tell you what I would say back to that. But
that
anyway.
it sounds like that you need to have a discussion
Especially
with them.
An in-law? An in-law? Are you kidding me?
It sounds very much like you need to sit down with her, maybe with your spouse, and have a talk.
Nah, just wait. If it's right in the middle of the party, you say, what the heck is your problem with me? And then they have to tell you in front of everyone. See here. We're not getting into that. Let's see here. I tell people that being creative is part of my personality. It's who I am, so I can do it as a hobby or do it and make money from it. Nothing's easy, but you don't know unless you try.
That's awesome, exactly. Rachel. That is a great comeback. Let's see.
Sometimes people bully you, whether they realize it or not, especially if they bully themselves. Try to figure out how not to participate in their bullying at all. Yeah, some people are just kind of socially inept. They don't really know how to talk, and it comes off in a really aggressive manner, and they don't know that it is. It's just how they've always talked, and no one's ever corrected them.
And you should know, I mean, you should be able to tell if it's someone that you've grown up with, like a family member that you've known all your life. You should be able to tell like who those family members are. And rather than taking everything too personally, just get an understanding for how they are and how they've been brought up. And you can still show, your dominance and pride for what you do. And you can still take control of those situations, but don't take things too personally from those people who may just not be very good at talking. You can out-talk somebody, but you're not going to sway their beliefs if they have felt that way their entire life.
Yep.
So sometimes it's best to just let people believe what they believe. And when your business takes off or when you have that proof to show them, then change their mind by showing them. But if you don't have that proof yet and you're still in those building stages, sometimes the best thing to do is just wait until you have the ability to show them.
Walking away is like the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Honestly, even if you just need to walk away for a second just to gather what you're going to have to say or what you want to say, that's better than responding in a way that's just going to urge them on more. Sometimes an a-hole family member entertaining themselves via you in front of everyone. Oh my God. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to have several family members like that. A lot of them are gone now, thankfully.
So something that I would do in a situation like that, where I know that there are a lot of people like that who will just use you as a way to make themselves look good. Like, so what are you doing in your life? Like right in front of everybody?
More than you.
I would say something to the effect, I would get them alone, first of all, like when you have an opportunity and, pull them aside at the party and say, hey, when, what just happened earlier, I really didn't appreciate it. I know that you probably didn't mean any harm, but I would prefer that if we maintained a level of respect for each other. And if you wouldn't talk, to talk about me in front of family like that, or I would prefer if you didn't say things like that. And if, and a lot of times if you are just honest with them and you do so in a non-malicious way, they'll realize, oh crap, they're serious. She's serious. She really doesn't want me to talk like that. And you might need to give them a subtle reminder, if they start at it again, maybe just give them a look and try to see if that'll help the situation. That way they can realize when they're doing it. Because some people just do it where they're trying to make like an example of you and they don't even realize they're doing it because
the time alcohol's involved with people like that, though. It's usually the drunk uncle.
Right.
The drunkle.
The drunkle.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody has one of those. My mother-in-law told me that too, but I told her if this person is going to approach me and say something, I'm going to defend myself. Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason that you need to stand and take crap.
I refuse to call it a craft room. It's my office. Yeah. I've never said craft room.
No, definitely not.
I have never said craft room. I call it my studio, the key studio. So studio, office.
My father-in-law isn't supportive and only asked me how much money I'm making. Recently, I asked him if he's seen any of my latest products, and he admitted he's never even looked at my shop.
I mean, when people ask you how much money you're making, I would tell
them none of your business.
Unless
you're making a lot.
When it comes to how much money you're making, I would pull up some statistics, and rather than saying how much money you're making, like raw dollars, say things like, well, statistically, I've been doing a lot of research and I'm working with some great business coaches, and say things like, statistically, I am doing better than most businesses do in their first 5 years. Most businesses fail within their first 5 years, and I am in the X% of my market. You could even get on EtsyRank.com and see in what percentage of Etsy sales that you're in. I'm in the top 50% of all Etsy sellers. Say something like that, I'm in the top 1% of all Etsy sellers. So if you're in the top 50, maybe that's not perfect, but to hear that for someone who doesn't understand what you're doing and saying, there's X million number of sellers on Etsy and I'm in the top 50% of all sellers on Etsy, that sounds a lot better than saying I made $5,000 this year or, something like that. Maybe you made more, but you don't need to say raw dollars. You can use statistics that sound a lot better, and that's only in those situations where that family member is not going to see value in that number, because $5,000 in a year, depending on where you are, if you make $5,000 in your first year on Etsy, that's freaking fantastic. But a lot of people don't understand that, because when they think about businesses, they think
they're like, oh, 5,000, you can't live off of that.
Right.
Of course you can't. That's not the point.
On average, it takes 5 years for a business to turn a profit at all.
And the fact that you're making any money at all is a wonder, since the majority of businesses fail. So if you're making money at all, you're already one step ahead of the curve.
Right. So find ways to position yourself higher, and you never have to mention raw dollars. In fact, I try not to. I've only mentioned raw dollars for Art by Starla Moore in cases where family members, for example, I had, what was it? My mom, I offered to cover dinner or something, and I had just had a really great lunch, and my mom was like, no, don't worry about it. I said, Mom, I'm fine. I said, I've got more, money, disposable income right now than you do. It's fine. Let me cover dinner. No, don't worry about it. Mom, yesterday we made this much money. I didn't want to say that out loud, but I don't want you to worry about me. I'm okay. I want to take care of you. So
a lot of people are saying that they were always told not to talk about other people's money. If I can find it, I'll share it. But there's a really interesting TED Talk that talks about breaking the stereotype of not talking about money, and why talking about money is one of the most important things you can do, especially in the workplace. You should always be talking about how much money you make in the workplace if it comes up in conversation, because it stimulates competition. It stimulates healthy relationships with your family members. So
and
you can
business, honestly.
Well, you can identify how much money each and every person in their family is spending, and you can always identify hey, do you really think you should be getting that new car? Or hey, do you really think you can afford a new mattress or a new couch or a new TV right now? It's all over. There's nothing negative that can come from talking about money. Nothing.
So with money, there are two different types of norms. There are things called social norms, and there are things called market norms.
Yes.
And the reason that you're not supposed to talk about money, or why you've been told not to talk about money, is because it impedes on a social norm. So for example, when we do Q&As, we don't talk about the price of Handmade Alpha Academy. The reason that we don't do that is because it impedes on a social norm, because what we are experiencing right now talking to you guys is a social setting. And when you bring in a market norm, it sours the social setting. So for example, if you were at dinner, you went to dinner at your mother-in-law's house, and she cooked you, this really nice dinner, and then you pulled out your wallet and you said, okay, how much do I owe you? She would get offended, right? Because you have just impeded on a social norm. Or if you are a guy and you took a woman out to dinner, you got this hot date and you took her out to dinner, and, when after the meal you pulled out your wallet and you said, so how much do I owe you? How would she feel? She would feel very offended, because you've impeded on a social norm. Or if you started talking about I make this much money a year.
Yeah.
You're impeding. You're impeding on a social norm. You're taking a social situation and you're trying to almost distinguish your value through money. There are a lot of really great studies when it comes to social versus market norms. I would write that down really quick. I believe that I read it in Predictably Irrational, but I'm not sure. I think that's where I read about social and market norms. Feel free to let me know, for anybody who's read Predictably Irrational, if that's in there. But I went further after I had read that part of the book. started doing a little bit of research on my own, and it's really worth looking at. And it's very, very interesting when you want to like learn why it's not socially acceptable to talk about money. So write down like social norms versus market norms on a piece of paper and look those up, because it's really interesting. And it helps me to talk to customers a little bit better too in my Etsy shop. And it kind of helps me to structure sentences a little bit better.
Yeah, Sweet Rotor said if you do find the TED Talk. See, I've looked for her and I had a conversation about this a couple months ago, and I looked for it. It's a really, really old TED Talk. It's some billionaire. It's somebody really important that had that conversation, but I can't remember who in the hell it was.
Are you sure
for the life of me? No, I know for a fact it was a TED Talk. It was like 45 minutes long.
Are you sure?
And it was about finance. No, it was not about market norms. It was specifically about finances in the workplace.
Okay, but there is one. YouTube, if you actually look up TED Talk market norms, social norms, it looks like Dan Ariely, author of Predictably Irrational, does have a video over the exact same subject. I'm going to paste it in the comments.
It's not the same subject.
I know.
It's a completely different subject from what I'm talking about.
I know, but what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead. Let's see. Autocorrect sucks.
About 7 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. Let's see. I'm a fair bit older than y'all, so I think attitudes have just shifted a lot these days. It's not okay. So that's not true. So let me like throw. I don't want like to discredit you, because there are some mindsets have shifted, but let me talk about this on a different scale when it comes to age versus like norms. Oop, let me switch back here. So when it comes to age versus norms, when you reach a certain age, your brain is less likely to take in new information that will allow it to make changes to itself. Your brain is less likely to create new patterns. And that's what we do when we're young. We create new neural pathways that are going to completely dictate our decisions. Every time that we, do something over and over again. And if you watched my webinar last week, you might remember me saying the phrase, neurons that fire together wire together. It's because the more that you practice a certain action or thought, the more it becomes a part of you, and a pathway, literally a road, forms in your brain so that you can continue making that action over and over again. But as we grow older, our ability to create new neural pathways begins to decrease, because we have less decisions that we really need to make. When we're younger, we have a lot of decisions that we need to make, and we have to be able to create those neural pathways quickly. When we're older, we already have very established pathways. So when you're trying to convince somebody of something, especially when they're a little bit older, they already have established pathways, and completely deconstructing that pathway is nearly impossible. It takes a very open-minded person to be able to change their neural pathways. It's also why younger people take more risks than older people. And sometimes those risks are for the better. I firmly believe that some of the best entrepreneurs, in business have started their businesses at an age where they were fearless, and they were fearless because they were able to create those new patterns in their brain, because that's just how the brain grows. They're able to take those leaps without thinking about fear, because they don't have as many neural pathways that say, wow, this is scary, this might not work. They have less skepticism, they're less cynical, they're able to see opportunity for what it is and just jump. Whereas an adult, we've experienced more failures. When you're older, you've experienced a lot more heartache, you've gone through more, you've had, a few more, mistakes behind you, and you're a little bit more afraid and more wary. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what it does is it closes you off to more possibilities, because you're afraid to take those jumps, because that's how your brain is designed. Now that you know this and you have this in your head, it's a lot easier for you to be able to look at a situation and say to yourself, okay, am I being irrational right now? What is the worst thing that could happen? And odds are the worst thing that could happen probably isn't that bad. For example, when we get questions about Handmade Alpha Academy in our email, like last week, that was our whole week was answering emails about HAA. And a majority of our emails, and this is not to generalize, this is, true statements. A majority of our emails came from older individuals who were afraid, because they have probably, and for those who are in Handmade Alpha Academy, you guys can let me know if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever made a huge investment and it didn't turn out to be what you wanted it to be?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So they, we had a lot of people who are afraid to put that money down because their instant thought was, what if it doesn't work? What if it's a waste? What if I'm wasting my money?
Then you get your money back.
And that's why we do the 30-day money back guarantee, because we know that it works, but we know that it takes that 30-day money back guarantee in order for us to extinguish that fear. And even with that guarantee in place, there were still people who were too afraid.
And that's fine.
And that's okay.
And I mean, the thing is, you can look throughout history and see when the newest generation finally got control in society. You can look at it through religion, politics, science, everything. I mean, think back, way back into the early 90s when two-piece swimsuits were finally coming out. That was like the biggest moral dilemma in history. And now you look at it and you're like, that's really stupid that people really thought that, wearing two-piece swimsuits was going to make men go on a sexual rampage. Like it's one of those things. And it continues to go like that. You look at things like electric cars. People thought, batteries and all that, that'll never be good enough. Or the freaking internet, for instance, or cell phones and all these kind of things. Like, when the previous generation finally starts to take over, that's when we progress a little bit more at society, because of obviously the things you were.
Right. And the thing is, society is never going to stop changing. And that's one of the big,
always going to change.
It's one of the things that I really stress in business, where people say things like, I'm too old to do social media. I don't want to do all the marketing stuff.
Not true.
I don't want to do all the marketing. I just want to make my products. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And the thing is, if you were, and I've said this a million times, so excuse me if you've heard me say it, but if you were to take a master marketer salesperson from the 60s and put him in 2018, he'd be useless. He would be completely useless. He would not be able to do anything.
Nope.
No matter what, time is always going to change. And if you sit and ponder about how things used to be and saying, man, I wish things would go back to how they were, you are never going to progress forward in anything, in business and mindset and, personal development. You have to always be looking forward and thinking to yourself, how can I evolve and adapt to the world around me? Because, there's going to come a time where he and I are thinking the same things. I'm 26, he's 27, and we're already looking at things that my daughter is doing and saying, wow, all she does is watch kids on YouTube playing with toys, watching toy reviews. And, we limit her time doing that, but we don't understand it. We don't understand why she wants to watch kids who are playing with toys on camera rather than her going and playing with toys herself. But then we look at society, and when we see that all the other kids are doing it too, I have to kind of consider, how can this also be a creative outlet, and how can we adapt with her? And how can I shift my mindset so that I can understand what she's doing while also encouraging her to also be creative? So, we'll let her have, one episode of a toy review, and then we'll say, okay, now after this, you have to go, act this out, or maybe you can write a letter to Santa about why you want that toy that you just saw. So we use it as a creative outlet for other things, rather than closing out the idea and just saying, no more of that. That's stupid. We don't want to be that old couple who's like, oh, the kids these days.
Definitely not. That's how my entire family was. I definitely don't want to be like that.
Let's see. That's actually what I meant. The younger generations are able to move easily, include on social norms, than someone, say, my age, who is already wired not to speak about money more easily. Oh, yeah. And that's true. But you can always change that, especially if you know that it's going to better yourself and better your social interactions. You just have to put it into deliberate practice. And I mean, that can be hard, putting something that isn't naturally wired in your brain into a deliberate practice, and then, retraining yourself to do it. It's as hard as starting, a new fitness routine or a diet. It takes practice. I believe it's 68 days before something becomes a habit. Right. You have to practice it every day for 68 days before it becomes a habit. But after that habit is what sets you free, and you no longer have to think about it. So rather than, torturing yourself over the idea of not being able to do it, you make a habit out of it. The habit sets you free. So yeah, enough of that. I think you told me 1,000,000 times that is true. It's still not okay in some workplaces to discuss pay. It's in our company policy, and you can lose your job. And
not if you're in the United States. Not if you are in the United States.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. They cannot fire you for that.
Yeah, that's true.
And if it's in your contract, you should talk to a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because that's very against the law.
And not only that, but we're not saying like do it anyway. Like if it's against your policy, do it anyway.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should.
We're saying as a society we would be better off if money wasn't a taboo subject, because it's
imaginary. It's a made up thing. It's literally a made up currency.
The thing is,
there's nothing supporting it.
The thing is, when we don't talk about money, it defines who we are, because it's this taboo, quiet thing that defines a social status. But if less people talked about it, I think that the ability for money to define what we are would begin to diminish as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So let's see.
It's one.
That's okay. I'm going to try to rewire myself if it's beneficial to speak on money, especially in a positive light. I get it. I'm certainly not fixed in my ways. Just watch that video that I posted in the chat up above with Dan Ariely, which now that I know that it's from Predictably Irrational, you can also read that book. It is my absolute favorite book. It is great for business, though it is a psychology book. I learned so much about business from reading it. But the main point, the main topic that I was talking about is in that link that I posted above. There's a meme about kids watching kids on YouTube and adults watching HGTV. That's true. Like,
she said, my last 2 employers had that policy. You could not ask another. Asking an employee and talking about money are 2 different things, because you can't forcibly ask someone to tell you anything about their personal life. That's completely different, but it's not illegal to talk about money, and they can't make it illegal. That's discrimination.
Right. Because, and just think, if somebody's getting paid more than you and you're doing the exact same job.
That's exactly the point.
Right.
There's nothing negative that can come about it. Like if you're doing the exact same job as somebody else and they're making $10 less an hour than you, that's a big deal. And that's why a lot of companies don't want you to talk about it. But I'm 99.9% sure in the business class that I took, they specifically said that you're allowed to talk about money, and there's nothing that an employer can do about it.
And she said, now that was 15 to 25 years ago.
Yeah. See, things are a little different than back then.
All right, guys, I hope that this has inspired you to be a little less afraid this holiday. I know we got off the rails there for a little while, but I think that it all plays in. Yeah. I really like talking about personal development, because it's kind of a journey that I work on in myself every day. I recently bought and have not completed a course about charisma. And I haven't been able to recommend that course yet because I want to finish it, but I do find a lot of value in it. And I personally, there's a lot of things that I would like to start experimenting within myself. I would really like.
Means I'm a test subject.
Well, I would like to start experimenting with things like meditation and, overall just self-awareness, because I am not a very confident person. I am confident around groups that I'm confident about. Like for example, his band. I feel like they're just family and I can goof with them, and I'm a total bro when I'm with, his guy friends. But for example, I am not that confident when I'm around their wives. I don't really know how to respond around, like,
they're not the same people as the band members.
Right. I'm very uncomfortable talking about, talking to the women, just because I'm a little bit more boisterous, and I guess I'm a little bit more ballsy than the women that are in that little circle.
More inappropriate.
It's not even that I'm inappropriate. It's that I think about things a little bit differently, and I don't want to offend anyone by talking about my value systems and my belief systems. And sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't know when someone is giving me those cues, like that they don't have a way to maintain the conversation that I've started. Like I don't give them anything to grab onto to carry the conversation, especially if they ask me about business and then I talk about my business and then they're like, oh, that's cool. But I haven't left them with a hook where they can grab on and take the conversation in a different direction. And every conversation needs to end with a hook that they can grab so that they can carry it somewhere else. And when you're, trying to maintain a conversation and you don't want awkward silences, you need to allow there to be a hook that the next person can grab onto. And if not, you're only supporting a conversation that's going to appeal to more words out of your mouth. So I have a hard time thinking of ways to invite them to share their opinions, because a lot of the things that I've done in my life, nobody else can relate to. especially, you know, just, I don't want to say average people because it's not like we're not average, but we've done a lot in our lives. We've traveled the country. We've lived, you know, in California. We've seen a lot. He was in the military. We've, you know, started 2 businesses. We engage with, I would say, at least 9,000 people on a monthly basis. And sometimes that's hard for, you know, just the average 9-to-5 mom to relate to. So that's something that I'm personally working on, that I'm hoping to improve upon, so that I'm not seeming like braggy when I'm talking, but I'm also able to talk about my passions. But anyway, that is topic for another day. Did we have any last minute? All right. I don't use hooks in my conversations either. And yeah, that leads to awkward silences. So that's obviously not something that anybody wants to go through. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. We are not going to be here next weekend because we have holiday stuff, and I'm sure that you guys have holiday stuff. So the 21st, we will not have a Q&A. Our unboxing is coming up very soon. We're just waiting until our colds kind of go away. Here are all of our packages. Beth, I know that you had asked if your package arrived. We will be replying to your email, but yes, it is back there. If you guys have sent us a package and it has not arrived, or if it says that it's in our PO box, it will not be featured in this unboxing, but it will be featured in the next one.
And we will send an email or a Facebook post letting you guys know whether or not we'll be doing a Q&A on the 28th. We haven't decided yet.
Yeah, it just depends. And then final points, huge congrats to our Handmade Alpha Academy class of 2019. We are now closed until the summer. We have all of our students in there. They are doing fantastic so far. Everyone is sorting out their dream customers, and it has just been amazing to watch everyone's growth. So I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend and that you have an awesome week next week. And hopefully
have a good holiday season too.
Yeah, seriously, guys, we might not talk to you until after the holidays. So we love you and we hope that you're safe.
Bubbers is upstairs, Deborah.
Yeah,
I had to lock him up there because he won't stop messing with the tree. And we had your boxes down here, which we didn't want him to tear up.
Yeah, Bubbers are the tree was on the floor yesterday too when we came downstairs. So they've been naughty kitties. Could you guys discuss super niche businesses at a later date? Would appreciate. I'm a huge weirdo. Afraid my art will be too.
Depends how niche.
Yeah, I would Google. I would Google the phrase "the nudist Buddhist" and look at that and try to decide if you're a nudist Buddhist business. And that might help you a little bit, because ultimately you can be weird and that's okay, but you can't be too weird, because too weird means that people won't buy it. So you just need to look and make sure that there is a demand for what you're creating. So maybe we'll do a topic on that later. All right. All right, guys, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.